In the small, quiet community of Greenbrier, West Virginia, life rarely deviated from its tranquil rhythm. Nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the biggest news typically revolved around the local church gatherings or harvest season. But in January of 1897, Greenbrier became the site of a mystery so strange, so chilling, that even to this day it remains one of the most remarkable tales in all of criminal history, an alleged murder solved by a ghost. It all began with the untimely death of Elva Zona Heaster Shue. Zona, as she was affectionately known, was a young woman in her early 20s who had recently married Edward Trout Shue, a blacksmith who was relatively new to Greenbrier. By all appearances, Zona was happy, her life filled with the promise of a new marriage and the prospect of a future with her charming husband. But beneath the surface of this picture-perfect couple, there was more than anyone could have imagined. On a frigid January morning, one of Trout's neighbors visited his home to pick up some tools, only to find Zona's lifeless body crumpled at the foot of the staircase. She'd been wearing one of her best dresses, a high-neck gown, and her face looked serene, almost as though she was sleeping. Her husband, Trout, appeared absolutely inconsolable, cradling her body as he wept. Dr. Knapp, the local physician, was called to inspect, and Trout seemed so distraught that he couldn't bear anyone touching Zona. While Dr. Knapp tried to examine her, Trout repeatedly fussed with her dress, carefully propping up her neck and insisting she remain clothed in the high-collared garment. The doctor didn't push back. It was concluded that Zona had tragically succumbed to a childbirth fit, an old-fashioned term for complications possibly stemming from a fainting spell or seizure. Her death certificate was signed, the body was quickly buried at the Shue family plot, and most of Greenbrier mourned, assuming it was an unfortunate, unnatural death. Trout avoided further scrutiny, crediting his erratic grief to the loss of his beloved wife. But for one person, the person who perhaps knew her best, none of this sat right. Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, wasn't buying it. She didn't believe for a second that her healthy, vibrant daughter had simply collapsed into death. Not without warning, not without rhyme or reason. In the weeks following the burial, Mary Jane's suspicion grew darker and sharper with each passing day. There was something about Trout's behavior, something hidden in the hurried burial and his obsessive efforts to prop up Zona's body during the doctor's brief examination, that gnawed at Mary Jane's heart. And soon, she found herself with an ally unlike any that had ever appeared in the pursuit of justice. Zona began to visit her mother in the night as a ghost. According to Mary Jane, Zona's spirit wasn't vague or fleeting. There was no ethereal whisper or symbolic haunting. For 4 nights straight, the ghost appeared as if she were alive in front of her mother, her vision clear and her words direct. Zona's spectral account revealed something chilling, that her husband, Trout Shue, had not been the grieving widower he pretended to be. In fact, he'd been her murderer. Zona explained that on the morning of her death, she and Trout had argued, a heated, jealous quarrel sparked by his fury over her not cooking meat for dinner. In a rage, he grabbed her by the neck with both his immense hands accustomed to forging iron in his blacksmith shop, and strangled her, snapping her neck in what Zona described as an act of monstrous violence. As Mary Jane listened, her spine tingled, and then Zona added one final twist to her eerie confession. The ghost tipped her head back to show her neck, bent at an unnatural angle, proof of the fatal violence Trout had inflicted upon her. A parent's love is unshakable, and Mary Jane believed every word. While most people would dismiss such a claim as grief-twisting the mind, she was certain that her daughter had found a way to reach out from beyond the grave. Desperate to have her mother uncover the truth, Mary Jane made it her mission, first speaking with neighbors and eventually gaining an audience with Greenbrier's prosecuting attorney, John Preston. Preston didn't openly admit to believing in ghosts. He was, after all, a rational man of the law, and Zona's visitation seemed an unlikely basis for an investigation. But there was something undeniable in Mary Jane's persistence, and something deeply suspicious in Trout's behavior during and after the burial. Perhaps Preston thought the spirit wasn't convincing, but the circumstances themselves might warrant a closer look. Finally, Zona's body was exhumed. Dr. Knapp conducted a thorough post-mortem this time, unrestrained by Trout's meddling. And there it was. Zona's broken neck. Her vertebrae had been fractured in such a way that it was impossible for the injury to be natural. Livid bruises surrounded her throat, indicating that she'd been strangled. The official cause of death was updated. Zona Heastershoe had been murdered. With a new investigation underway, Trout's suspicious behavior began to unravel his carefully woven disguise. Not only was Trout known for a history of cruelty toward women, including 2 prior marriages, one of which ended with his wife a sudden death, but he was also new to Greenbrier because he'd fled his previous town amid rumors of misconduct. His tendency to move quickly from one partner to the next, paired with Zona's post-mortem injuries, painted Trout in a damning light. Before long, Trout found himself on trial. The courtroom drama was nothing short of mired in controversy. The prosecution presented the broken neck, the suspicious rush of the burial, and Trout's violent history as evidence that Zona's death was no accident. Meanwhile, Trout himself remained stoic, insisting his innocence. But the most shocking turn came when Mary Jane herself was called to testify. This was her chance to publicly share the details of Zona's ghostly visit, a story she had told prosecutors but never been offered the platform to reveal before an open court. Mary Jane stood tall, recounting the eerie nights when Zona's spirit described Trout's crime in chilling detail. The court hushed, jaws dropped. While judges instructed jurors to consider Mary Jane's testimony as purely anecdotal, it was clear that Zona's ghost weighed heavily on every person in the room. Trout's defense team could do little but scoff. But this was no urban legend. It was a mother's unyielding fight for justice. Ultimately, Trout was convicted of murder based on the physical evidence, his suspicious behavior, and the haunting testimony that became the heart of public fascination. He was sentenced to life in prison, but died just 3 years later behind bars. Zona's story became folklore, a strange reminder to the people of Appalachia that sometimes justice requires reaching beyond the veil. To this day, the tale of the Greenbrier ghost draws fascination from historians, mystery lovers, and anyone who's ever wondered whether the spirit world might hold a few secrets of its own. Mary Jane Heaster never doubted the truth shared through her ghostly encounter with Zona, and in an eerie twist, the graveyard where Zona lies remains a popular site for supernatural enthusiasts, many of whom claim to feel whispers of her restless spirit. Was it poetic justice? Was it divine intervention? Or perhaps it was just a mother's love? Unstoppable, unwavering, and willing to chase down truth in any shape or form. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing's certain. Zona's haunting legacy ensured that even in death, she refused to be silenced.